Good evening to all the intellectual ladies and noblemen. Here we are in session 4 of Phoenix Literature Festival Juniors Day 2. I am sure you all have had consumed a high volt dosage of a lot of fun and learning till now. In this session, we are going to talk about the theme The Child is the Father of Man, with our most prominent personalities. So, with the drum rolls and the thunderous rounds of applause, please welcome our panelists. Today, we have Sri Ketan Bhagat, who is an author, a screenwriter, and a motivational speaker. Next up, we have Ms. Sujata Parashar, who is also an author, a poet, and a founder of Talk It Out Express. And then, last but not the least, we have Sri Tuhin Sinha, who is the best-selling author, a screenwriter, and a politician. Please welcome all of them with a thunderous applause.
Thank you.
So, as William Wordsworth in his poem said, a child is a father of the man. What is your respective thoughts on this theme? A child is a father of the man. So I'll start with Sujata first. Sujata?
Thank you, Ssumit, for that question. It's a pleasure to be here at the third, I think this is a third edition of PLF, and share my thoughts on this very pertinent topic. Now, coming to the point that you raised, I completely agree with this paradoxical statement lifted from William Wordsworth's poem, as you mentioned, My Heart Leaves Up. Most of in fact, 90 or almost 100% of our personality that is visible as an adult is actually formed during childhood, whether it is our attitudes, our behavior, or even our beliefs. Everything is formed during the early ages, 0 to 5 that they mentioned. You can tweak some parts of it. You can restructure or reframe certain thoughts and emotions that shows in the form of your behavior, but the inherent basic qualities does not change. So that's the first part of the question. Now, coming to the second part of it, which is it more truer than ever now? Whether this statement or this quote, which has been lifted from the poem, does this hold more true than ever now? And again, I would say yes, because we are living in very interesting times. The form and family structure is changing it's evolving at a very fast pace. And now families like, household types like whether it is co-parenting, single parenting, or even homosexual parenting. These are the new forms of family structure that are coming out, or that are becoming more common nowadays. And their needs, their requirements, and their challenges all are vastly different than what we see in dual parent families. And because that is so, in psychology, there is a term called observational learning, which was propounded by Dr. Albert Bandura. Now, according to him, observational learning is that children in their environment, in their immediate environment, whatever they observe, they see, and they consider as someone who's higher in status from them. They start imitating them. That becomes they become the others. Like for example, parents, siblings, teachers, they become their role models, and they start imitating these role models. And over a course of time, over a period of time, they imbibe these characteristics, and then they start displaying it. As they grow, they start displaying the same. Now, let's take an example of a single parent family. I'm myself a single parent, and I have written a book on single parenting, which came out recently. Let me just quickly mention the title, Going Solo, Raising Happy Kids. That's the book that I've come out recently with. Now, when we take the case of a single parent family, the child's immediate role model is the single parent. Now, in a society like ours, where they are still frowned upon, especially if you are a woman, single parents are not really encouraged. Single parenting is not encouraged,
Yeah.
right? So in such a scenario, the child is looking at the single parent who might be undergoing several sorts of issues of their own. And if they are also behaving in a manner, if they are in a low life state, or they are depressed, or they are worried about different other responsibilities that they are holding, and they are portraying that in their routine life, that is what the child will also pick up.
Yeah.
So a strong and happy parent will be seen as a strong and happy person, individual, and those as a model, strong and happy model, and that will be engraved into the child's mind and displayed when they become an adult. Similarly, if you are in a low life condition, the same things will affect the child and will be reflected when they grow up. So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sujata. You have elaborated the point, the theme to its extent. But I would certainly like to know both of our other panelists' thoughts as well. So, Tuhin sir, what is your thought on this theme? The child is the father of the man.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in this fest. But I think, given the way we emphasize on gender neutrality, that saying would change in today's context to child is the parent of man, or child is your parent, not the father. Having said that, see, every progressive generation has a greater exposure to technology, has a greater exposure to reading material, to sources of information. So it is but obvious that a successive generation evolves at a much faster rate than we did. So
Mhm.
yes, I mean, to a large extent, by the time a child is 10, by the time a child is 12, he tends to give you a worldview, or he tends to, acquaint you with a perspective which you may not have been aware of when you were that old. So definitely, a child is a teacher, definitely, if not the father of man. But more importantly, I feel it is important for a child and the parent to be true friends in today's age, because, like Sujata was mentioning, this is an age where I think in our generation we grew up in nuclear families, but I think even today we have gone a step ahead, where even within the nuclear families there are stresses of various kinds. COVID has induced, the pandemic, of course, has induced a new level of stress altogether. But then professional stress, the stress of single parents, and all kinds of stress. So it's very important at this point of time for a child and the parent to be true friends from a very young age, as in for a parent to be able to truly involve the child in his journey, and vice versa, because that is where the obvious but often invisible loneliness, which both the parent or the child may at some point of time encounter, and which may at a later stage become a big issue, can be thwarted. So yes,
Right.
I think it's an evolving stage in our journey from joint families, 40, 50 years, to nuclear families, to particularly challenging situations within nuclear families. And it's important for, I think, like I said, the child is obviously, whether you call him the father, whether the
Father of
parent
the
or the teacher of man. But I think it's more important for the child and the parent to be true friends in today's day and age than ever before.
Absolutely great. What a thought. Thank you very much. Ketan sir, your thoughts on the theme, please.
Actually, it is such an obvious thing that I don't even think it merits any discussion. So I think the good part is that society is finally beginning to embrace reality. When I was young, we had these 1980s and 90s. We had these Amitabh Bachchan movies where Anirupa Roy would be a mother and she would produce many children and lose all of them, and then somebody would randomly pick them, and some priest will pick depending on the kind of narrative the writer wanted, and then she would get her, it's like she had, after 20 years, grown up, and with their partners and professions, she will get back her children. So that is how society used to fantasize about parenting. Probably that was too many children and too much poverty. So people related to the idea of losing children and somebody else would raise them up. But today, I think in my home, if I look, the child is the endangered species because we have so many gadgets, so many senior citizens, so many adults, and very few children. And
Yeah.
so I also, a theme I wrote in my second novel also, in that same house, of all the people, a child is the only one who is happy, though he's the most powerless and the most vulnerable. So finally people are realizing that, we are the ones uh, who have lost the plot in the midway. This was always the case. And so today finally people are coming back and realizing that the child is the true phenomenon, the reason for the house. He's the deity in the temple, and all the bells and whistles in the temple are around that. So it's a obvious thing, Sumit. Thank God. I mean, we were stupid enough to think love stories and marriage was everything in life. It's not. It's the child which is everything in life. So
Absolutely agreed, agreed, agreed. So, as an author, I mean, like you, all three are authors, and this thought, this poem has been written by William Wordsworth in that era when he wrote it in "My Heart Leaps Up." So, what do you think would have come in his mind as an author? What do you think that what would have come into the poet's mind to write such a line? Is it the intellectual part, or is it something more deeper meaning into it, or something of that sort?
whom would you want?
Anyone, any of you?
So let the poet talk about the poet.
Okay. So Sujata, you're talking on mute. You're back on mute.
Yeah,
Now.
so it's on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I read the poem and I found it quite interesting. I write poetry, as Ketan just mentioned. You know what happens when we write poetry? We are writing from a space where we are not thinking about what's the logic of it, or what's it's going to get us. It comes from a space of emotion, what we are feeling at that point in time. And to me it appeared that he was basically reminiscing about his childhood. He must have seen a rainbow or something, because the poem is also called The Rainbow, if you know, if you've read the
Yes.
poem. So it mentions the rainbow also, and it's the title is also The Rainbow, apart from this My Heart Leaves Up. So it has two
My heart
titles.
is-
Yeah, so now I think the poet in that moment was in that kind of state of mind when he was kind of feeling nostalgic and reminiscing about his childhood, and the emotion came to him, and then he wanted to hold on to the emotion, and he wrote that poem in that emotion. And he also, in the poem, he talks about, may this carry on, this kind, the emotion that he's feeling, he keeps on feeling it even when he ages, or becomes older. So now, how it was interpreted by people, by psychologists in a different way, by other critics and everybody in a different way, it's relatable. But I don't think so. He had any idea that particular line will become so popular, so famous, and it will be, deconstructed and understood in such a beautiful manner.
Yeah,
So
and
that's,
and these days it is used as an idiom as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an idiom. It's actually an idiom now.
It's
Yeah.
actually an idiom these days. Yes, yes, yes. So, with having said that, children, of course, in today's world are smarter than what we used to be in our times. Yeah. So, is that smartness somehow taking a toll in their on their on their naiveness, or maybe on their childhood. Tuhin,
Um,
if you would want to answer that.
Well, yes, I mean, I think it's something which is inevitable because from our generation, which would gain advent to technology when we were, I think computers came in when we were, I think when I was about 20 years old. Cell phone, I got, I think the era of cell phone started when I was post 20. So from that to a time when 6 or 7 year olds are constantly playing games on their cell phones, and policing doesn't help. As a parent, beyond a point, you just need to trust your, or you need to set certain regulations, but to set them very overtly would again create uh, an environment of friction which doesn't go well with parenting. So yes, I mean, these are challenges one would expect. In the guise of connectivity, or in the name of connectivity, a lot of things which, even forget kids, we should not have, a lot of things which should not have overtaken overwhelmed us are guiding our lives. There are so many times I feel my dependence upon the screen or on my phone should come down. But then today, right from a Google Pay, right from a payment to checking out movie tickets, everything happens via screen.
Yes.
So I guess it's something which is inevitable. One would love to go back to the serene 1980s or the 90s, when in fact there would be 6 to 8 hours of load shedding, and fortunately one would see those difficulties while growing up, because without these difficulties, kids anyway lead a very opulent and a very protected life. They don't know what challenges in life are. But I guess like, you have to go with the flow. One can't undo the development which has happened over the last 2 or 3 decades. So the challenge is to still maintain your sanity, to still strike that balance, and life is about balance.
Absolutely. Tuhin very rightly said. And with this, a couple of questions cling into my mind. One is that, of course, we cannot police around with with our children on
Hmm.
this new technology and things. And secondly is that we need to balance things. Yeah. So, what is the message for parents to understand their children with this high technology? Ketan, if you would like to answer that.
I think, we blame technology a lot. The nonsense is within us. And, I definitely think there's a lot of technology, but, honestly, the amount of divorces uh, and the struggles that the children are seeing in real life is much more than what they are seeing on Google or YouTube, I think.
Ah,
And that's what we are forgetting all the time, that the child learns when we are not teaching him, when we are just being ourselves. And there's a lot of reality of us coming out nowadays, which we don't realize, but they are absorbing. And some of it is beautiful. I think um, what we call childhood is typically the innocence here. So
right.
what attracts us to a child is the innocence, and then the exposure kind of takes away the innocence. And like Tuhin said, that exposure comes and they become smart. But I think the only message I'll tell to everyone, and this is learning I've learned myself, you cannot teach a child anything what you are not yourself. you know
Ah,
and I don't think looking at a screen spoils you. Having a spoiled parent spoils you. So I genuinely feel that a child is nothing but a mirror given to you by God. you know and it would be very nice to look at the mirror and stop blaming the mirror for the reflection. Yeah, so that's my answer.
true, true, true. I agree. So here, when you say that, the children learn more when we don't teach them, but when we teach them, they don't learn much. So when we are in our own selves, then basically when we are in our own skins, then they learn more. So, Sujata, being a single parent, do you feel the same way that when you teach your child, probably he or she learns a little less than what you do in your normal chores?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when you asked me the first question about, I mentioned observational learning,
Yeah.
and children, parents are the first influencers of their children.
Mhm.
So Ketan is absolutely right when he says that, when we are not teaching, they are learning through what they are observing. Now howsoever you try, to teach them the right things about, say, time management, but if you are not punctual, your child
Mhm.
will not, don't expect it from your child, because it has to be you have to work on yourself first before you think of parenting your child. So a
True.
lot of restructuring, reframing has to happen with you yourself first as a parent. Only getting the title of a parent because you've given birth to a son or to a daughter doesn't make you a
Mhm.
parent.
Right.
You have to earn that title. So that's my thought.
Agreed, agreed, agreed. Absolutely. So this should actually come inside out. That what you are doing, let as Ketan also mentioned, that what you are doing, you need to mirror it into your child, because the child mirrors it for you in his coming ages. Right, Ketan?
And often, sorry, I would like to add to it. Often, it's not possible for us to be always that prim and proper, and project the right kind of behavior. And that's also okay. We are
Yeah.
not magicians, or even if we are magicians, I mean, I would like to call myself a magician, but sometimes magic also fails, and that's all right. But then you should be able to communicate to the child that, listen, here I went wrong, and I'm sorry about it. Discuss it out. Have open door discussions with your children from time to time to let them know that, okay, this is the right behavior and this is the wrong behavior, and mom has this weakness, so let's try to, I'm working on it, and you help me with it. You don't follow me, you just somehow make them understand that this is a wrong way of doing something,
Yeah.
and you acknowledge it. You start by acknowledging it yourself, then the child picks up. So this is
True.
something
True.
I do with my son as well. He's 17 now, and he has some good habits and some bad habits, but but that's okay. That's okay.
Very,
I
It's
very
think
his.
we are
rightly said.
also not in the business of producing magicians. We are not magicians ourselves. We are not in the business of producing magicians. So I think
Yeah,
our children will not be perfect as well, and that's fine. I mean, we've never had perfect people around us. Why produce perfect? We
yeah,
don't want perfection, right? So I think
yeah,
you're
True.
right. It's
Absolutely.
accepting them imperfection as well, along with making them accept your imperfections. I'm your
yeah,
father, but
Right.
I'm just a human.
Absolutely, absolutely. So having said that about magicians and having that Midas touch with me and in three of you, uh, I would like to take some of your magic dust, not only for me but for the audiences as well. So, Tuhin, if you have to, give a message to today's generation to read the books, the actual books with the spine, and to write, how can we encourage them? As
When you talk of
I have a son of I have a
I
son
think
10 years of age. He's a reader, but when I ask him to write something, he's like a little,
no, I think before we come to the specifics of what like reading a book is a specific task. That taking off from what Sujata had said,
Mhm.
you can't. We ourselves are not expected to be prim and proper all the time. So the idea should be to broadly set a broad set of uh, you know
yeah,
correct values. For example, the acceptance of a mistake. Does your child accept that he's committed a mistake, or does he argue that he has not when he's committed it? Does
Correct.
he feel gratitude for what he has, or does he, is he never satisfied with what? I think these are the broader values which one needs to emphasize upon. I don't think
Mhm.
one should even think or expect to be perfect, because none of us are perfect. In fact, the day you're perfect, I think you can only decline from there.
True.
Imperfection at least gives you something to work upon, to try and better yourself.
Hmm.
Now, reading books is a specific habit we all, obviously would
Yeah.
insist upon. But like I said, I think that it's more important to put the broader set of values in place to ensure that he's, kind of in the right company, gratitude, acceptance of mistakes, and some of these values are in place. I think that is what I would emphasize upon. Yes, I mean, if he's a good reader, me being a writer, me being a author, I would love it if he writes a book, even though I would not want him to pursue it as a profession, for obvious reasons. But but
True, true.
So then
Yeah,
that
I think also,
actually,
I
please
think
please
Sumit,
go ahead, Captain Ketan, please go ahead.
I think also, I think it's see, reading is going to go away. Let's accept it. It's a dying thing. I think it's really stupid of us to think that people who read become intelligent. That's no formula, you know. And so, I also don't think just because you write you're brainy. So
Yeah,
I think these are our you know circuit यहाँ पे गड़बड़ है. You know,
Hmm.
the stupid notions
conditioning
we
that has
have.
happened over
There's
the
that
years, I
conditioning.
guess.
I yeah. So I really think that reading, writing, these are expressions, and mediums changed. Today if you're an actor, you don't need to be in movies. You can be on an OTT today. If you're a writer, I mean, I was just on a flight yesterday and day before. I have not seen a single person reading a book. And I was thinking, why am I writing books? And I realized I'm writing books because I love writing books. And that's why Tuhin said if you would want it to take a profession. I think the most work is on ourselves. The child is all right. He's okay, but the problem is us. We are not. Um, we were not brought up in an India that is today, where there's riches, there's no problem of employment. At least in the kind of genre we are in India, where you know uh, there is sort of there's not a hunger anymore for the basics. There's no
Yeah.
competition for basics and all that. And so we are overthinking, oh my God, look at this boy. He's going to get spoiled and he's got everything. They have their own set of challenges. They will have their own set of opportunities and achievements. And we're going to die. I think we should focus on us.
So I think you have said it right. They have their own challenges, and in those set of challenges, what I feel, not only for the kids, the children especially, but for everybody, I see three most poised and most calm people sitting right in front of me at this point of time. Yeah, of course, you guys have earned it, learned it before, and now you guys are implementing it. So, what is that one formula to keep yourself calm and poised into any and every situation?
I'm
And
not
There
as
is
calm as I look right now. So I'm thinking I'm not a calm person. I'm quite an emotional person, actually. So, depends on the situation. But for me, I think what matters most is leading a simple, healthy life. And I derive joy from little things, you know.
Mhm.
They So I'm not very worried about kal kya hoga. I'm worried about that, but not so much. Like if I have something to do today, I make the most of it. So
Yeah,
I live in the moment, and that kind of helps in every little thing helps. You see how I'm dressed up today. My son remarked that, Mom, you are already a Santa Claus. Christmas is still a little
yeah.
we have few days left, and so I make the most of everything that I do, and I think that keeps me happy, in a happy space, keeps me pepped up for life. Yeah, so basically, but I'm not a very calm person. I'm quite an emotional person. Yeah.
What
So
about
I
you,
give it
Ketan?
to
you asking me to?
Yes, you.
Okay. No, I think for me, I mean, I'm 44 years of failures. You have no choice but to be calm in life. And see, in spirituality, Sumit, there's a very clear line written that nothing changes. And it's an opposite. So spirituality is opposite of the materialistic world we follow, where it says everything changes. In spirituality, it says nothing changes. The sun is going to come out and go down, and the weather is going to come and go. Nothing changes. So actually, the William statement you said, I think it's it was true then, it is true today, it's going to be true 1,000 years later. It's going to be true not even for just humans, it's for animals as well. I'm sure they just can't communicate with us. So when nothing is going to change, everything's permanent, life is the same. I'm telling you, 30 years later, you can have the same lit fest with probably our kids or someone else's kids on the same topic, and they'll be saying similar things. It's just that the peripheries will change. From the screen, probably it will be something even more, visual and
Brand.
3D, and they will be getting into that and things like that. So, uh, if you want to be calm in life, flare up as much as you can. There's only as much you can flare up, and the helplessness of situation, of your finiteness will seep in automatically.
Amazing, amazing thought. So, what are your thoughts on this? To be
Well, I'm
calm.
I'm I'm not calm at all. So I don't even claim to be calm. So in life, if you do many things, probably if you, I think it's a balance. Life is a balance sheet. If you succeed in a couple of more things than you have failed in, you appear somewhat calm. You appear somewhat balanced. But I don't think I'm calm at all.
At least, I mean, like,
Except
as of course, I mean, like, when when I
except
just
except when I'm on screen. That's the only time when I'm calm. Yeah.
that's that's nice, because as I said, all three of you said something about being calm, and you guys are not calm and emotional or something of that sort. But to me, you guys are a set of calm people who use your mind and intellect more to guide people, guide forces, and to make future leaders. That's what I feel, and that's what the audience also feel these days. Not these days, of course. They know that's the reason why they are looking at you. Yeah. So tell me one thing,
Well, that
or maybe one challenge of yours which you might have faced in your life, which you think can help the generation or anybody to learn from.
To learn from. Believing in yourself, in my case, I think, yeah, self belief is something that today's generation is really struggling with. And this is something that I faced in my life as well. I mean, it came gradually. I'm still working on it, but I'm very doubtful of everything that I do. And I think it also comes because, my personality is such, and then the area I'm working in, I mean, as a writer, and also in my other field as a psychosocial trainer, and I'm creating new modules and new ways of thinking and new solutions to problems. And when you look at it, you tend to self doubt, right? And my personality, of course, is also from childhood. I've been like, I'm born and brought up in an army setting. So we were introduced to multiple things, facilities, and everything, together. But my dad was never there. My mom was the one who actually raised us. Dad was often on there, and that I think I felt his gap somehow. That must have impacted my self-esteem to an extent, and that plays out, you know in between. Of course, I've kind of come out of it because I'm myself a psychosocial trainer, and I'm a talk therapist, and I can work on myself. I know where to work, I know the issues, and then slowly I can work on it. I keep doing that, but it's resurfaces. And this is something I will tell the children today, that it's absolutely okay. Accept, acknowledge and accept as yourself as you are. You are unique, there's no one else like you. And so what, and there is some talent, there is some hidden potential in every child. We just don't, there are more than seven kinds of intelligences. So you just have to focus on yourself and believe in yourself, whatever that is there. The weaknesses that you see within yourself, work on it, but don't let it discourage you from moving forward or moving on in life.
Amazing. So, when your ideas, or maybe your challenge, which you must have overcome, which helps the viewers.
So, when you consider your child to be a friend, there are times when the child, you know, simply because he's too young to understand what is okay and what is not, would behave in a slightly irreverent way. For example, I'll give you an example, or let me just put it this way. So I end up being on a political debate almost every evening, and it is
Mhm.
but obvious that my child would be privy to it or would hear me some of the time.
True,
So
true.
while I would want to, he's 9.5 years old, he's almost 10 now. While I would want him to be educated on what's happening in the country in a limited way, he is not allowed to ridicule Rahul Gandhi the way I might on screen. So that's a line which one needs to very carefully draw, because
Correct.
when I have seen this because of like in yesteryears we had too many friends somehow, and especially in the last 2 years after the onset of the pandemic, the real interactions of kids have reduced significantly. So I think their dependence on parents have increased all the more. And it's very, while one needs to be friendly with them as much as possible, it's also important to draw that line on where that reverence and that you know decorum needs to be maintained. So I think this is a
True.
slightly complicated zone.
Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. So, Ketan sir, what are your challenges and thoughts on those challenges to make people learn from those? Oh, I think we have lost Ketan for a moment.
Yeah.
So by the time he comes back, Tuhin, as you very rightly mentioned, that we need to understand to draw a line so that the child does not cross that line. So in the present scenario, there are many things which we as a parent do, which we don't want our children to do. Yeah. So what is that one way which can help us to to not let our child cross that line?
There are no fixed rules. It's a trial and error method. It all happens through trial and error. So there are no fixed rules over here.
Okay. So we have Ketan back with us. Ketan, before you were disconnected, we were talking about challenges, your challenge, and learning from that, from which our audience can learn. So please tell us one of your challenges, and from that, what learning we can derive from.
I think the biggest challenge I've seen in raising a child is realizing we are the worst generation to teach them, because the circumstances in which I was raised, the lessons that I was taught, the
Mhm.
behavior, the conditioning, and I was done is totally irrelevant today. And what I'm seeing and what I'm trying to teach my child is exactly opposite. We were a poor country, and my parents and school and society only gave me skills to survive. Getting a job and a wife was all that mattered. From there on, that's all. That was all the purpose of your existence, right?
Right.
And then, so today when I look at my child, we it's not that I'm worried that he'll get a job. I'm worried whether he'll become a Sushant Singh Rajput or not in life, irrespective how high he goes. Whether, so in a way, people like Rahul Gandhi, people like Abhishek Bachchan, people like Uday Chopra, people like Harshvardhan Kapoor or Hrithik Roshan's, in a very very miniature form, they are in our house. Because
Yeah.
today it's very hard for me to tell my son that what will happen to you, who will feed you. He knows there is so it's irrelevant whatever I have learned. It's very difficult to tell him that you have to score and crack an IIT, because frankly there is no need. It's very hard to tell my boy that please respect women. There's no need. It's stupid. In fact, I have to teach him the opposite, that feminism also has an element of terrorism to it. So be very careful. Somebody may just marry you and take away half your property. So whatever I was taught is totally irrelevant. And also, the issues are different. My wife. Um was, the purpose of my mother, like, get him a good wife. For me, the purpose is to get him a good Wi-Fi. You know, if he has a good Wi-Fi, he'll be sorted. So, and I'm not talking about men versus women. I'm saying everywhere, even with
Definitely.
girls.
And
I don't think a Tuhin or Sujata will advise girls that find a good groom for yourself. But at our time, it was important factor. You will say, okay, you will get a groom. If not, you will leave. You know, today, a Vicky Kaushal can marry a Katrina Kaif, who's 6 years elder. A Malaika Arora can live with another man who is 14 years younger. It's so beautiful. So it's good for women empowerment, but also, like Tuhin said, these are some things his 9.5-year-old and my 11-year-old are also watching and absorbing. And so, do you really think I will, the way brides and grooms were looked for us, would be looked for them? So how a poor man who was told by his father that I have nothing, so when I die, you have to be on your own, has to teach his son that when I will be gone, please manage whatever you have. Don't let someone loot it away, and still handle yourself. Do something with your life, even though you are sure of bread and butter. So I think we are a generation which is raising children without having any clue, how to raise them, what are the skills they need. So I like what Tuhin said, that give them those principles,
true.
gratitude, be responsible, because the specifics is something I have not seen myself. Uh, this is my submission, and this is true. I'll give an example. One of my son's best friends, 1 year or 2 years ago, it was his birthday. And I don't know, Tuhin, Sujata, when we were young, birthdays means gifts and we would be excited. And this child, I picked him up and I took him to a toy store and I said, Beta, what do you want for? He said, I have everything, uncle. But since you bought me, and it's my birthday and we have to buy something, just chalo, I'll pick something. This is a 8-year-old, and I couldn't believe it, because my son today is exactly like this. He doesn't
Amazing.
crave that when will you take me to a movie hall, when will you take me to a McDonald's, so it's a, I can't relate to these children honestly, though I've produced them.
True. True. Agreed. Agreed. So before we wrap up this session, one thought I would want from all three of you on one thing which Ketan very rightly mentioned, because as he mentioned that he was in a flight yesterday, and he saw none of them reading the books, and then the thought came in his mind that why am I writing books? So, as an author, why should you write books?
See, the reason for sorry, I just
Oh, that's
started.
absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the reason I write is because there is something that I want to say. There are questions that I want to explore, and there are stories that I want others to read, maybe share with some people who can relate to it. Those are the reasons why I write. But the parenting book that I wrote recently, the Going Solo, there were two reasons I wrote that book. One, because I am myself a single parent. And apart, like besides me, 50 other single parents have contributed to the book in the form of anecdotes and experiences and even tools and techniques, So they have also contributed to the book and enriched it. But okay, that was one part of it. But I wasn't ready to write the book still. Then as a psychosocial trainer, I've been training and going out and training, doing these parenting workshops, and I found that there are no or very little books or material on single parenting, and their challenges, needs, and their requirements are totally different than what we find in dual parent households. However, this book, although I wrote it for single parents, is also equally beneficial to dual parent households. So that is the reason something or the other comes up why I write a certain book. My fiction, The Temple Bar Woman, that I wrote 2-3 years back, I wrote that book because of I mean I was aghast with what happened, the Delhi rape case. We all know
Yeah.
about it, the Nirbhaya case. And I was like, I mean, come on, what is happening? We live here, so many women live in the city, And we all know what the story is all about. And I was like, I have to, I mean, as a writer living in the city, and I am not doing anything about it. And that's why I wrote that book. So reasons come why we write, because we want to express whatever is there. We want to question. We want to understand, make sense of things. And that's why we write. I'm not writing for, it will fetch me money or get the
Absolutely.
food on the table or anything. One
Great.
thing before I stop, one thing I want to say is about the challenges part is that children today, we are not teaching them to accept and acknowledge and appreciate failure
True.
and also mistakes. That is something that we should be encouraging. We are always kind of encouraging talent. Oh yeah, he's very talented, or the child is very talented. Now talent is one thing, we all have hidden talents, but how much effort that the child is putting in, what is it that the child is bringing different to the table, those things
True.
must be appreciated even at the cost of failure. How much experiment he or she is ready to do, these are things what AI and technology won't be able to do it.
Won't
So
be able to.
fostering
Yes.
creativity, reading and writing will help you do that. you know
Correct.
uh,
Absolutely.
Creativity in any field, whether you read, write, or whether you are a musician or anything. Not only thinking out of the box, but think there is no box. you
Correct.
know
Absolutely.
your imagination,
Absolutely.
broaden your imagination and all that. So that was, I'm sorry, I wanted to add that bit for the
That's
benefit of the
absolutely
viewers
great.
who are
Yeah.
watching.
Right,
So
Sujata. So, Tuhin, what is your take on writing books?
See, one, I was destined to be a writer, so I have to write. And two, I still have interesting stories to tell.
Wow.
So the last two books that I have done, one was a geopolitical thriller against the COVID pandemic, and the other one is a historical fiction, Birsa Munda, which is just about to come out, on the verge of coming out. But then I later realized that while I had great ideas, I would not be able to exactly do justice to the book the way I had conceived them. So there are co-authors in place, and while I worked on broader outlines and the characters, I was fortunate to have them in place, and this kind of helps me multiply myself. So, but yes, I mean, writing gives a certain sense of liberation, because a lot of
Yes.
thoughts which are lying dormant inside you need an outlet, and I guess I was destined to write.
Absolutely. Great said. Ketan, what's your take on that? Why to write?
See, I think that so I totally agree with Sujata and Tuhin. Very well put. I think stories are always be needed. There's a form and a function. So the form is story, function is novel. It will change. I think the stories are far more needed now because end of the day, nobody wants statistics, right? They want a narrative rather than
Yeah.
statistic. So I think there's a huge demand for stories. You watch Netflix, Amazon, or Hotstar or Sony Live. Look at the kind of stories that are coming. If you feel you should not write, just watch some of the web series. You watch five, at least three, you will feel did they have a writer or they just come on a set and started doing whatever. So as the audience is maturing, the stories are needed more. Yes, what is important is why should I apply my mind? It's the same when you have a calculator. Why would you learn maths? So when you have audio video medium, why would you apply your mind and try to imagine yourself? Somebody's already imagined it and put it in a beautiful visual form for you. So you
Yeah.
should be a writer for all the reasons that Sujata and Tuhin have said, but also there's a boom in the market for writers, you know uh, but uh, writing is soul. So the body it encompasses will keep changing. It will no longer be that book. It may no longer be that Kindle, and then it may no longer be even that 70 screen. It may just be
True.
like I wrote Upstarts, which was on Netflix, and it's still there, and I get mails from Brazil and Malaysia and whatnot. So I don't, the demand is there, so you should write.
True. Amazingly said. Thank you very much. So, audiences, you heard the people saying why to write books and why to read them. You have some stories, you have some thoughts in your mind, you have something to speak up, you have your own emotions to dwell upon, to let people know what you think. So that's what is to write about and to read about. So I thank you, Sujata. I thank you, Tuhin, and I thank you, Ketan, to
Thank you.
for being with us on this day two, session four of Phoenix Learning Festival. And myself and my audience are overwhelmed to hear you all. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you,
Have a
Sumit.
lovely
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sujata.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
very much,
Ketan.
Suman.
Thank you. Thank you, Ketan.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Sujata and Sumit. It was lovely being on you on this show.
Thank
Same
you.
here.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
uh,
Bye bye.
political shows, and I'll keep in mind. So, but